Hi, my name is Bryce Coffey. Welcome to Coffey Travels' podcast, Wanderlust Wallets. Today's episode, let's go over one of the most on-demand topics that is oftentimes many of the most misunderstood, and that is finding cheap flights. So whether you're trying to find a budget-friendly getaway or trying to maximize your savings for a big adventure, really, it comes down to finding the best hacks, tools, and insider tips out there to help you find the lowest fares possible. So let's get started on this. So you may be wondering, what exactly allows flights to fluctuate the prices to fluctuate in the way that they do? Is it just demand, when there's it's getting closer to the date and you have to look at flights? Use less seats. Well, that's part of the equation. Airlines use all sorts of algorithms to adjust their prices based on demand, but there's also a pricing influenced by seasonality, day of the week, as well as time of booking. So, and also, by the way, keep in mind when you're on the flight, when you're on the website, checking for flights, your cookies, your browsing history, if you look at a flight multiple times, Google will track that for you, and oftentimes you'll see an increase based on repeated searches. So that's something to know before doing that. And what I would say is go on incognito mode in Google Chrome. Try to clear your cookies, because that will save some money there. What I would recommend when it comes to flights is try to make sure not to go overkill with trying to find the best deal out there. If anything, here are what I would recommend, the tools that you would look at first. Google Flights, and what I do is I have looked at what's called the date grid and price graphs. These two tools are the most helpful because they allow you to track, if you just select your destination, your airline, or if you don't have a preferential airline, that's no problem. You could just select your flights. You've probably done it. Check the date grid and the price graph. You'll be able to see, maybe if I depart this day, 2 days before or ahead, rather than the day of, I'd save $100 something. That's big. And maybe the price, and if you're looking at the price graph, that would help you if you want to see exactly whether flying, having a trip for 5 days, 4 days, or shifting your trip by a day or more can help you save big. You can see and compare side by side on this bar graph, just to show you right there. Anyhow, something to keep in mind as well is that with flights, you got to make sure you check everything that you need to do with it. Don't just rely on Google Flights. You get the email notifications and all that sort, but sometimes you need to go in bigger with Skyscanner, other options like Skyscanner, Hopper, Momondo, and Going. Those are other flight searching websites and apps. You'll be able to see, for example, on Hopper, predict, it gives you an estimate of what is the best time to book a flight. Better than Google Flights, in my opinion. Also, searches smaller OTAs on Momondo. OTAs are basically online travel agencies. Keep in mind. And then Going, you'll notice mistake fares and big discounts. Sometimes that can show up too. So yeah, something to keep in mind. By the way, one thing I want to note is because I use this a lot and I've noticed it's not a really good experience, is with Expedia. You know how on Expedia, and by the way, you have to be a gold member. If you are searching for flights, there'll be a price guarantee thing. That doesn't go. Expedia is not really good. I wouldn't really recommend it for flights. I would recommend only Expedia more for hotel packages, because with flights, like, you don't really save as much money, if anything, and if things go wrong or whatever, you have to cancel. You have to like, you're not dealing directly with the airline. With Google Flights, for example, you actually it links you to the actual website of the airline. So it's better for you. It's more convenient. Just an FYI. Because with Expedia, they don't actually return you the money. And like, I know Google's doing like this price change guarantee where like they'll return you the money. But with Expedia, they don't return it to your actual original form of charge. They only do it to your own account, which is called One Key, I believe. One Key is like the your account's like points, or how much you get awarded, and it's not really worth it for me. So I just rely. I don't rely on Expedia for really anything, but if I had to use it for something, it'd be the hotel, not for flights. Next, here's what I would say is when it comes to booking, many times people think, oh yeah, just book with like, for example, I'm going to talk domestic flights in the US, because domestic flights in the US are crazy expensive for what they are, versus in Europe they're double digits. You can book in the last minute, so European audience doesn't really need to listen to my advice if you're within Europe. But within US, listen up. Here's what I would say: book at least 3 weeks out, and 2 months. There is such thing as booking. There is such thing as booking too early as well. Like, I've seen it to where, like, and if you do like for example, if you check out like a Star Alliance or a One World ticket, which is basically United and American Airlines respectively, you'll see like ticket prices, and this is on Google Flights, but if you check it here, like, I'll show this as well in the video, but you'll see that the book in advance is plateaued at a really expensive fare. And by the way, when you want to look at Google Flight ticket trends prices, you have to use one ticket only. You can't do more than one, otherwise it won't give you the actual graph. But you have to select, as you see here, select the actual ticket. I'm just picking one out of the blue, and you'll see here, this one's for March, which is coming up. But as you can see here, this price here is plateaued at a really high rate. That's honestly what you'll often see, but it'll go down as it gets closer, but not too close, by the way, as you may already know. So that's something to keep in mind. But like, if I were to book, for example, something out in September, I'll just do that, September to Las Vegas, for example. And I will talk more about Google Flights in particular, but like, they won't show you actual graphs. So this is just a little thing I wanted to add about. Like, it helps me to understand, like, oh, am I too early or too late to adjust the pricing, to purchase a ticket, I mean. Next thing I wanted to discuss is like just knowing the best time of days to book. It doesn't necessarily, there's no magic formula, but like I said, to book a flight, 2 to 3, like we talked about domestic, but what about international? With international, it's similar, but much longer and much earlier. It'd be, I'd say, 3 months to 8 months. That's the trend that I would see where you get the best bang for buck. It's very complicated, but like I said, the price algorithm, here with flights is just, it's very much like dependent upon the the destination you're going to, the bums to seats on the flight. So for example, how much capacity is already used up, supply and demand, as well as like the season, like I said, the seasonality, I'm gonna leave a link in the description for like some of the information I found helpful from a research guide from university, but it's basically just because something is like it's just not like you think you know it about dynamic pricing, but it's actually much more complex than it is, and you have all the tools necessary to really make sure that you get it. Don't leave money on the table, as I said. But there's like with capacity, seasonality, and really just the destination itself. So I'm gonna leave a in the description. But also, just what about like figuring out what is the best time of day to best day to actually make the booking versus the flight the day of the actual flight. Well, they say Tuesday or Wednesdays tend to be the lowest, and oftentimes they are, but it's not always the case. Versus if you do it on a Sunday morning, it's more expensive. Yeah, just that type of stuff to keep in mind. Booking one-way tickets versus a round trip. That's another topic I want to really hammer in. So many people, and other hacks that many people think they know but really don't. Booking a one-way ticket won't always be more expensive than if you do round trip. If anything, round trip is oftentimes more expensive. With United, you don't get carry-on versus American, you do. And so oftentimes you need to know what is the best option for me in this particular situation. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Also, I want to keep in mind something. Hidden city ticketing is a thing. So when websites, for example, one called Skip Lagged, find flights for your destination, and there's a layover, like if you're booking a flight to Dallas with a layover in Miami, it may be cheaper on the paper saying that booking instead of booking directly, but with it comes the delays, with it comes the costs of like checking in luggage, and versus if you do direct, there might be more perks or cheaper, so just keep that in mind. Also, mixing budget airlines. So if you're doing like a destination like transcontinental, oftentimes transcontinentally, not always, but for the most part, you don't have a budget option. I think in Miami though there are budget options out there. So like if you wanted to fly to Europe, fly to like a destination in the U.S. from like New York or Miami, you'd be able to save a lot of money by using a airline out there. I think called Flybuzz. Airline. What is it? I wanted to find it for you, but a budget airline that flies to Europe from U.S. is actually it's not that hard to find. It's just like if you're like in the middle of the country, unfortunately, it's not doable. Unless if you're okay with multiple stops or not, because like a nonstop is going to be mostly on like on the East Coast, like from Europe, or like if you're going to Asia, it's on the West Coast. But there's one called Play French Bee. That one's a big one out of Miami. That's the one I was trying to think of, but came across. I forgot for a moment. Norse Atlantic and then Fly Atlantic. That's another one. But like mixing those airlines, but as soon as you get to the continent, or where you are, you can fly within that area. Because only in the U.S. is it where the case where you fly regionally and it's expensive. In Europe, it's not the case. You fly Wizz Air, you can fly Ryanair, you can fly EasyJet. You'll see tickets even as like close of a time frame as like the next day, as booking for the next day is like 19 euros. I've seen that happen to 78 euros. Crazy. Here in the US, you wouldn't get away with that with like Spirit or Frontier, for example. One other thing I want to go over is credit card points. and airline mileage. Even though you don't fly frequently, I'd still recommend it. It's free. And this is different from signing up to credit cards, because you pay an APR. Nevertheless, that's not the case. Just like I said, I don't travel as much lately. I'm going to be traveling more and more. But, like, the more points you rack up, the better. Like, and you don't have to be loyal to one airline like you are, like, to a hotel or, like, Bonvoy or, like, so on and so forth. Like, with you, like, you can have your United, you can have your American, if you're in the U.S. And the best of all, sorry, the best part about it is, like, these airlines, they're partnered with international counterparts in one, like, overall partnership. Like I said, United is under Star Alliance. You know who's in what other airlines are in Star Alliance? Lufthansa, I think Nippon Air, which is Japan, Turkish Airlines, one of the best rated airlines out there. You can actually use your United, or like vice versa. If you just flew with Turkish Airlines, you can use those points from there to your United. TAP Air Portugal, Thai Airways. Who else is a part of it? You can Google it, but like Air Canada, Avianca, LOT. Those are just some of the many international Star Alliance airlines that you can use in addition for your United airline mileage. But what about One World Alliance? You'd be surprised One World Alliance has a lot of big airlines out there that you may be surprised that you can use your points and transition them to. That'd be like Iberia, British Airways, Cathay Pacific, Alaska Airlines, Japan Airlines, Royal Air Maroc, Royal Jordanian, and Malaysia Airlines, just to name a few. And lastly, there's another alliance partnership group out there that's for Delta. If you know, Delta is supposedly one of the best rated airlines out there. It's called SkyTeam. SkyTeam, I think, like if you have a Delta airline account membership, mostly you probably fly out of Atlanta, but like nevertheless, no, that's not always the case. I'm just giving a stereotype, but like they're partnered with Air France, Korean Airlines, and Aeromexico. So just keep that in mind. So again, just because you think you're using one airline and you're loyal to it doesn't necessarily mean you're just limiting your options. In fact, you're helping yourself by signing up to all these airline mileage programs, because it's free and you just rack up points, and you can use the crew points from any of the partner airlines that they're teamed up with, so you can potentially get a free flight and so on and so forth. One other thing I want to go over is what not to do. What not to do when you book a flight. So, first of all, don't book flights too late, but also don't book flights too early. Secondly, avoid booking on Fridays and Sundays, but nevertheless, don't overly look at the day, because the day is not always like set in stone as being like what the trend that is oftentimes seen. Don't always book round trip. Oftentimes multi-city would be cheaper, or not multi-city, but like two separate one-ways. Multi-city oftentimes, I should know, is oftentimes more expensive, but you're also not having to be stuck at, like, if you have to like go from one place to another and not have to necessarily return, it's more efficient, like for like if you do rental cars and all that stuff, which I strongly recommend looking at, considering. Also, be careful with discounted, like cheap fares, like basic economy. They may seem attractive at first, but in the end, they're often not, because like you're basically trapped. You can't get a refund. You can't change seats. You can't bring. If you're like in United, by the way, in United you can't do this, but you can't bring carry on. It's not free. You're gonna pay for the carry on. You might as well just get main economy versus basic economy. So be careful with basic economy. Don't always rely on that. So in closing, I hope this hodgepodge of different hacks, different insights for cheap flights will help you travel cheap and not leave money on the table, but also get the best bang per buck for when you have your journey. By using, like I said, flight search tools out there, which I'm going to go over more in depth, but right now just show you're like, and knowing like all the hidden tricks, like you're not going to know them all because airlines are not going to let you know them all, but at least knowing some of them will help you save big. So I'd love to hear what your comments are, and if there's any best flight booking tips that I've missed, which I probably have, and that you'd love to share. I definitely will talk about them and add them. I drop them in the comments below. Tag me on Instagram at Coffey Travels, and if you found this video helpful, I really appreciate you if you could subscribe and or leave a comment or review. It helps the podcast and helps my channel and helps me to hopefully spread the word about travel and what we can all do to have better experience and enjoy this beautiful planet. Thank you, and safe travels.